From one of Australia's former leading homicide detectives, this is I Catch Killers with Gary Jubelin.
So now we've established two things. Firstly, you pulled over. You reckon you've seen Daniel. I said, and you're a liar. They'll kill you if they catch you. When you do come home, you really have to do a lot of combative surveillance just to get home, make sure no one's following you.
You haven't been declared to police that they've got someone in the
Exactly.
camp.
Yeah.
I Catch Killers with Gary Jubelin.
Today, I had a chat with retired Queensland cop Dennis Martyn. As a former detective, Dennis had a diverse career with the police, where he worked on the Daniel Morcombe case, helped track down pedophiles. Before he got into policing, he grew up in the remote country town of Moree, where there was a tough racial divide. When he was younger, he joined the army as a soldier and then went on to join the Queensland Police, where he spent the next 20 years of his life. I never worked with Dennis, but we've had lengthy conversations over the years after we were both out of the police. Let's have a listen. Dennis Martyn, welcome to I Catch Killers.
No problems. Thanks very much.
Well, it's been a few years in the making, getting you on. I think we first started talking and communicating after I'd left the cops and you were out of the cops.
That's correct. Yeah, it has been some years.
Yeah, they slip by, don't they?
Very quickly.
I'm going to ask you a big question up front. When you look back, what's your reflections on your time in police?
Look, I think the reflection would be that it was a good job. There was a lot of satisfaction. There was until you started to climb the rank structure, and then you found out obviously there was some issues that you had to comply with if you were to go any further. But if you wanted to stay as probably a constable, I think everything was probably kosher. And if you didn't want to do anything that was going to make anybody think adverse to you or make any decisions that other people didn't want you to make, you'd be quite happy.
Yeah. There's a bit of a compromise, isn't there, the further up you go, up the corporate ladder?
There is.
The hierarchy?
Yeah, the sooner you get to the closer you get to the point of the pyramid, the more scrutiny you come under and the more, I guess, you leave yourself open for other people to have a go at you.
Yeah, I look at policing, and I'm not sure, and we're going to talk about your army career, but operational police and management police, they're two different streams. There were people that I could respect in the police that were good managers, but I didn't think they had the skills or the experience as an operational police officer. But it seems to get convoluted as you climb up the top. Someone rises because they might be a good operational police officer, then they become management, and they're not, they're better off as operational police officers than managers. Then on the other side, you have these people who are good managers, and they climb up the corporate ladder or the hierarchy, and all of a sudden they think they're operational, but they haven't got the experience.
That's exactly right. Yes, you'll get some people that never leave the academy, basically. They're like full-time uni students. Stay there, then they may come out on the road for a couple of years, and they're back as teaching at the academy. Then they'll go to a managerial position, and then they're back on the road as an inspector, giving you operational advice.
Yeah.
They have got no idea, absolutely no idea. And the advice they give you might be legally sound, but it's not correct for that part of the area of town you're in, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
They've got no feeling of what the crims are up to. They've got no desire to put a crim on notice and maybe source him out for some information. It's just, there's the evidence. Why aren't you arresting him? Why hasn't this been done? They've got no idea to play the long game.
Yeah.
And they are only there for one short period of time anyway, to get back behind a desk so they can go up to superintendent and so on and so forth.
I think that's big, and I can only speak for New South Wales, but my observation of other state police and possibly even the federal police, the way that people can climb the ranks so quickly, I think causes problems. I looked at New South Wales and thought you could simplify or make it a better structured police force if you had to stay for a period of time on a rank. Like, say you became a sergeant, maybe you had to spend 5 to 7 years as a sergeant before you could rise to be an inspector. Yeah,
look, I don't disagree with that at all. And I think that, I tried to bring in something at what they call a detective training school. Yeah. You had some detective trainers there that were detective sergeants, but, they'd been there for 5 and 7 and 8 years. And my suggestion was that, look, why don't, you use this as some sort of, I guess, a bit of training for the operational police officer, but a rest period. take him off the road after, say, 10 years, give him 2 years there and then back on the road.
Freshen them up.
Yeah, freshen them up and gives you, up-to-date information and on-road experience for the new detectives coming through.
Yeah.
You thought I killed their mother. Oh, God. You can't suggest such things. Absolutely not. He's been here for 10 years and, he's getting size 38 in his trousers and wants to have small donuts for lunch and that's it. Leave him alone. But,
it's a strange world policing. But, there's good and bad and there's good cops, bad cops. And
yes.
But anyway, your career and people, whether you like it or not, I suppose a lot of your profile is extrinsically linked to the Daniel Morcombe case. In that there was and we're going to talk about it in detail later on in the podcast. So don't want to cover off on it now. I want people to understand who you are before we get into the detail. But people remember Daniel Morcombe. That I think it was. He was 13 years old, 2003, 7th of December 2003 when he disappeared. It was a horrendous situation. And his parents campaigned for a long time, and it took, I think, 8 years before Peter Cowan was finally arrested for Daniel's murder and convicted. You actually spoke to Brett Cowan within weeks of Daniel's disappearance, and you... At that point in time, you formed a view that he was should be the number one suspect for the murder.
That's correct.
At the time. We're going to talk about that in depth because I think it's very interesting. Gives you an insight into policing and the robust nature of policing. And there's a lot of pressure when you're investigating crimes of that nature. Yeah,
look, there is a lot of pressure, but there's a lot of pressure brought from both ends, both from the families that want something completed and they want some, I guess, resolution.
Yeah.
And then you've got from the management side of policing who are saying, look, we're not going to pay you any overtime at the moment. It's either do your own time, work in your own time. So it comes down from money. And then you've got pressure from the operational management who are saying, we've got another murder that's just occurred, you need to wrap this up, or we need to not give you as many resources. It's just never ending. And people don't understand these competing priorities. And they think, well, why hasn't something happened?
Yeah.
Because you've probably only got one guy working on it.
Yeah, well, it's all those competing interests, and we'll break that down a little bit. But before we move on and talk about you, we're just I've seen you speak about the Morcombe case and the empathy that you have for Daniel's parents, family, about what they went through and how tirelessly they worked, Denise and Bruce, to get justice for their kids. So I think we need to sort of pay some homage to them and the brutality of the crime. It's one that captured the attention of the nation, really, didn't it?
It did, and they were just the epitome of what a family would be. They were, she looked like somebody's grandmother. He was a nice, gentle fellow. They were a lovely family. And that's just the way they came across. And they were honest and open. There was nothing you could say bad about them apart from they were just lovely people. Yeah. No, it was a sad case. It was. Your life, it's been an interesting and diverse life. You grew up in Murky, a western town in New South Wales. It's a town that had a tough reputation. There was a bit of a racial divide there between the Aboriginal community and the white community. That's the perception that seems to come from the town. There was a lot of issues there. You grew up there as a young Aboriginal boy in that world. Tell us your experiences of your childhood growing up in Murky. Well, it's a very robust little town, and that I don't think it's ever changed. It's always been around 10,000 people, 10,500. Very much an itinerant working town. A lot of people would come and do stick picking and cotton chipping and all of those sort of things. We lived what is now well inside the town limits, but when we were there, our house was on the outskirts, and all it was, as soon as you walked out your door, you turned left to go into scrubland, and then you just get big briar bushes coming down the road. Or if you turn right, you'd go up to Killick's store near the school, and that's the way it was, and that was the town. Yeah. There was never any... I didn't see a great deal of racism in my early years. Yeah. It was later on when I realised what racism was. But apart from that, whether you were playing black, white, Chinese, not that there were many Chinese, but there was the odd Chinese shop in town, so you might have seen them. That was the only thing. Other than that, they were all kids. Yeah. And that's what it was, Yeah, it was rough and tumble. There was no shoes. There was no nothing to do other than, go out and play in the fields. Really, that's all there was.
Do you have good memories of your childhood?
Yeah, I do. Growing up, my father was a grave digger, and that's all pick and shovel. So I remember going with him to the cemetery on a lot of occasions, helping backfill graves.
Yeah.
And then he was also the cemetery cart. So he'd run down through the back lanes early in the hours and pick up the cemetery carts from the toilets in the back. And so I'd jump on the truck with him and go and help him tar out the tins when we took them down and washed them out. So it was all of that sort of stuff.
Okay.
And that's just, and there'd be nothing to go and get a 22 and go over and you'd get some rabbits and bring them home and, skin them and gut them and have some dinner that evening. Or it was absolutely, that's what we were allowed to do.
Okay, that was the life. Well, it gives a bit of an insight and compared to life growing up in the city. No wonder you turn out tough growing up in that environment, and I suppose self-sufficient too.
Yeah, well, look, I it's a funny story when you say that because years later, my daughter, I can't remember how old she was, might have been about 6 or 7. It was near Easter time.
Yeah,
and I didn't even give it a thought, and I took her over into the paddocks and we got some rabbits and
you didn't shoot the Easter bunny, did you?
Yes, and she still to this day brings it up that I killed Easter bunny. Tasted nice.
You poor child. We'll have to get her on the podcast.
Yeah.
So how long were you living in Moree? Did you join the army straight from Moree?
Yeah, look, I joined. I didn't join. I did some work at the local RSL club, and I was sitting there one day after cleaning the toilets and other little things that I used to do at the club, and in came the recruiting sergeant from the army.
Yeah.
So they were in town, so I went and had a chat, and he goes, "Look, no one joins the army for 3 years, mate." He said, "You always do it for 6, wink, wink." I didn't know. So I went.
Had your signature before he walked out?
Absolutely. Yeah, so in I went, and that was that, and I didn't come out till 97 and then stayed in as a reservist after that.
How old were you when you joined the army?
18, I think.
Right. And where did you do your basic training?
Basic training was at 1RTP Kapooka down at Wagga.
Yep.
I still clearly remember I was in Charlie Company 24 Platoon, and there was a Corporal Kirkett, and I still remember him. Yeah. Just, it looked very similar to yourself.
My son went through the basic training down there, and I remember I call it the best bit of parenting I did because I sent him in as a kid and he came out a man. But it really, I saw the difference, and it was 3-4 months or whatever the training was. Yeah. But you saw the kids, get on the bus and be driven there, and by the time they're passing out, they were completely different human beings.
Absolutely. I was pretty straight up and down coming from Moree, I thought.
Yep.
Jumped on the bus here in Sydney because that's where I got recruited. And you had to fly from. Oh, actually, I think we got a train, overnight train from. There's only one train every couple of days from Moree to Sydney.
Yeah.
And then I had to make my way to the recruiting section, and then they got us on a bus from here to Wagga. But during the bus trip, they searched you, took anything off you, like knives or anything that you shouldn't have had, got you off at the bus at the end of the day, lined up all your gear, took it away. Next stop was a barber shop. No hair left. It was that's the way it was.
I remember before my son joined, I was saying you probably want to do some training, get some fitness up and that. And I'd go for a run with him in the morning and do a little bit. And he'd be laying on the lounge. And I think you have no idea. You have no idea what's about to happen to you. But anyway, it's an experience. So where'd you go and what was your role after basic training?
All right. Well, after that I went to what they called, I guess, initial employment training down at Puckapunyal.
Yep.
Went down there for another few months, and then I ended up here at Mossman at 30 Terminal Squadron.
Yeah.
So I stayed there for a couple of years, and then I went to Albury-Wodonga, and then swapped over to Intelligence Corps.
Right.
And I went from there to One Int Company in Brisbane. Whilst there at One Int Company, did tours of Somalia.
Yeah, and that would have been interesting.
Yeah, that was interesting. Yeah. I was caught up there with a few things that, I guess being investigated for war crimes and all that sort of stuff. When we came back, and that continued right through to about 2009, they just kept sniping from the sidelines and found out there was nothing there, and that's the way it was. And obviously until people started coming back from Afghanistan and Iraq, and they thought, well, we've got some new people here we can investigate.
turned it on.
Yeah, so left me alone.
On there. What's the role? I think the people that have been listening to the podcast long enough get a sense of what the role of an intel officer is in the cops. What's the role of a military intel officer?
Yeah, well, look, a military intel officer has a lot of hats they can wear, and the psychological operations.
Yep.
So in which turn you would go in and try to work out how you're going to, I guess, change the hearts and minds of the people.
Yeah.
You might be doing airdrops of that sort of stuff. And I remember quite clearly in Somalia, the French Foreign Legion tried similar, but what they did was, drop things from the helicopters and say, look, come in and give us your weapons. But they were waiting for them. So as they were coming with the weapons, they took them as combatants and just shot them dead.
Right.
So,
okay. Well,
so don't deal with the French Foreign Legion.
Okay. Well, that's we're not falling for that one again.
Yep. So then we have counterintelligence.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're looking at own forces counterintelligence, and then counterintelligence on the enemy. Then we have not psyops, imagery analysts, linguist analysts, and one intelligence operator can do the whole lot.
Right.
So it was quite diverse. I thought very good.
Yeah.
And I do remember clearly talking to an old general from the division, and he never spoke to, obviously, enlisted people like me very often.
Yeah.
But I ended up being his intelligence sergeant. And he said, look, I want 99% accuracy from you. If you're not, I'll get somebody else in tomorrow.
Right.
So it was a lot of work to try and make sure that he got the accurate information.
Well, it is an important role, isn't it? Like when you've just a job description there of what you're covering. If you got it wrong, you could create a disaster, literally.
Well, look, absolutely. Yeah. At the end of the day, if you give them false information, they act on that information.
Yeah.
You've got other people's lives in your hands. But I was actually very lucky that I went through that period of time that the intelligence operators went out beyond the field.
Right.
And, we were in different sort of clothes and trying to gain sources and get information like that.
Right.
So it was very interesting.
So you had more control of the information that came in,
yes,
and you could make your assessment.
And a better way to verify.
Based on that. What
yes.
were the dramas in Somalia at the time when you were over there? What was going on?
It was just all they call it clans, but that's really just tribes or whatever you want to call it. They were just, shooting, killing each other, and the whole country was just a mess. It was run by a couple of warlords. Wasami was one in around the Baidoa area.
Right.
The other was Adid, was the main one from Mogadishu.
Yeah.
So I remember once I jumped on, I was told to go to Mogadishu. And it was one of those things that people don't say, well, how do you get to Mogadishu? You were told to get there, you got there. So I wandered out to the airfield, and I found an Irish fellow, and it just happened to be St. Patrick's Day, and he was drinking a bit. They said, I'll get you to Mogadishu. So we went via Rwanda. What I ever was doing in Rwanda, I'll never know. And then we went from there, because I didn't get off the plane. Yeah. So we'd come from there, and we ended up in Mogadishu. And then they said, just wander over there and tell them who you are and what you're for. And I did. And so I ended up with the psychological operations group and the 7th Marine Expeditionary Force from America.
Yeah.
So we're at the stadium in Mogadishu. And I thought Pakistan was on our sides, but no, they started to shoot inwards to the stadium, not outwards.
Right.
So they were hopeless.
It would have been an interesting time for you.
Yeah, it was interesting, you know, and it was a good experience.
Yeah.
No.
So how long did you stay in the army? When
I got out in 97 to join the police, but stayed on as a reservist.
Okay. What rank were you when you left?
Sergeant.
Sergeant.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So good experience. What made you leave the army? Not a career.
Yeah. Look, I wished I'd stayed in the army, to be honest.
Yeah.
But the issue with the army was that it was a young man's game.
Yeah.
And
toll.
The physical toll was incredible. You can only carry 70 or 60 kilos on your back and dig holes to sleep in at night time for so long before you get a bit tired.
Yeah.
And every day is training, which is nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But you're training for something that may never occur. Yeah. And when it does occur, it's a bit of an anticlimax, and therefore you think, well, if that's it, there's not much else.
Why am I putting in so much?
And I'd always wanted to join the police.
Yeah.
So because I did apply to New South Wales as a cadet back in 1982.
Right.
But for one reason or another, I didn't have the education or something, they said.
Yeah.
Coming from Moree High School with great grades of C's, I thought, well, that'd be fair. So other than that, no. So that's when I applied to join the Queensland Police, yeah.
Okay, policing. So New South Wales didn't accept you?
No.
Okay. Queensland. I'm not sure if you made the right choice or not, but okay, with Queensland. So when did you join the Queensland Police?
97.
Yep.
I joined the Queensland Police. I went from there to Goodna, which is a tough little area, and it encompassed quite a large area. So I did a couple of years there in uniform.
Yeah. Whereabouts is Goodna?
Goodna is in the western suburbs of Brisbane, out towards Ipswich.
Yep.
Still a bit of a rough area. It really old Pauline Hanson's stomping grounds. But so it was a bit of a tough area. It was a very isolated area. I know it was still within the confines of a CBD, but the amount of police we would have, maybe 2 overnight for a really, really large area, probably as big as, the northern beaches. You'd have two coppers overnight, and that was it.
Yeah, covering the whole area.
Yeah.
How did you find going into policing after the army? Did you think it was beneficial for you, the background that you had in the army?
I absolutely think that I've seen a lot of people come from military, particularly army, to police.
Yep.
I see very few police going back towards military.
Right.
So my only thought in my mind was, well, it's got to be better.
Yeah.
Because
people
aren't going backwards.
Yeah.
Not that it's a backwards move, but I'm just saying they're not transferring from there to military.
Yeah.
So they've seen the light, and so they're staying. Yeah.
There was always something about the military guys when they came across to the police, and you saw quite a few that it seems to be like a natural progression, but they carry themselves a little bit different from other police, and that you always felt like when there was a lot of pressure on, it was good having the bloke that's come from the army, bloke or a woman that's come from the army. Okay, well they'll won't crack under the pressure of it.
Yeah, and I think with that came a lot of calculation from them. They knew, they knew how to use resources a little bit better. They knew how to communicate a bit better. They worked together well. They worked as a team. And I just thought that it was a good natural progression anyway, and they did a good job.
How did you find going, like you retired in the army but as a sergeant, and you've moved up the rank structure? How did you find going from the army, where you're running the show to an extent, then joining the police and starting right at the bottom again? How did you find that? I
thought it was very difficult.
Yeah.
Really, I did. Because I think coming across at the rank level I was from the army, you had control of quite a lot. And a lot of people, directly, 30-odd people underneath you. And then you come in there and you've got, a senior connie, you're a constable, they're probably about 23 years of age, little life experience on their own. I just found it difficult, you know what I mean? Particularly if you had a bit of a bum of one of them that thought they were a lot better than what they really were. But look, at the end of the day, I think we got on well, and I hopefully provided some advice, and they gave me some as well.
Well, the type of person you're talking about, the sensible way and the good type of leadership, I think, in that situation is that if you've got someone under you that's got more experience or knows something a little bit more than you, they use them, use you. Like, use your experience. What would you do here? What would you do here, Dennis? That type of thing. But I think there's a fear, and it's not just policing, but there's a fear that if you don't know and you're in a position of leadership, you've just got to carry on. And I see them quite often overcompensate, like make decisions because I'm the boss, I'm going to tell you what to do, even though they haven't got the experience, but they've got a team of people underneath them that could, they could ask for some advice.
Yeah, and look, and I did find that quite a bit too, that they weren't prepared to take advice.
Yeah.
Because it looked weak.
Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously a lot of people, and I didn't realise, as particularly in the Queensland Police, I don't know what it was like in New South Wales, but they were looking for comments. And they said to me, make sure you keep comments. And I said, what do I want to keep comments for? I said, someone comments to me every day. You know? And what they mean is that if you turned around and said, oh, look, Dennis, you've done a great job today. Thank you very much. Your good time management. It's all just made up so that you can keep the email put on your resume for a promotion.
Yeah.
You know, well, Detective Sergeant Jubelin said that I was a good operator and I did good time management. Hence, KSC1 for the resume. And that's all they were doing.
We could talk about this all day, about that type of person in policing that's just looking for, if I do this, that'll look good on my next application. Therein lies the problem with the leadership in the police, I think, in that you should just be concentrating on doing your work, and then the leadership will flow organically from that, or that's how it should, but it certainly doesn't. What made you, first of all, as a policeman, not a young policeman, so you've gone in there with life experiences, but I don't know about you, I made a lot of mistakes when you're first in the cops because it's a new world and that. Is there anything that you did and you look back and go, Jesus, what was I thinking?
Yeah, well, there was, and there still would have been should I have been in there. But look, I remember clearly we were a little bit, I guess, a bit of a larrikin. You know, that's a little bit of my attitude. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't dislike it. But we had an old inspector, and I know this has got nothing to do with crims, but it's something to do with our larrikinism.
Yeah,
you know? And he was just a funny fellow, but a nice fellow. And so we waited till he left for the evening. We were on night work. And so he sneaked in his office and shredded all his in-tray. Yeah. And so he came in and he thought, this is great. Someone's done my work. And he just sat back. And the next thing you know, about a day later, the superintendent got stuck into him, you know.
Yeah.
So, don't look at us, we've got nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it. But,
you've got a little bit of laugh. I don't know. We can't encourage that. Don't try that in the police. There's some chaos that goes in there, and I don't know. Maybe it's a way of balancing out that you can go from that to attending a car accident where a family's been killed. So it's sort of letting a little bit of steam off. I don't think it's too bad a thing.
Yeah, no, I think it's good. It's good.
Yeah. What about plain clothes? What drew you to working in detectives?
Well, look, where it really came from, I was in Queensland. They give out a bulletin, or it's like a advertisement of jobs every week, I think it was, or maybe every fortnight. I think it was every week. And if you saw things, and I saw the Undercover course come through. Yeah. And I thought, well, that really suits to what I used to do. Yep. I'll give it a go. So I went through the recruiting process for that and the vetting process, and got accepted. So I remember. No, I didn't. I jogged home that afternoon with my pistol in my back bag because I had to take it to the new unit, being the covert unit. Yeah. And I got instructions to get on the train at Goodna, get off at Roma Street, get on a train to Wollongabba. Somebody be there to pick me up, and then they were half an hour later. So then they took me to a warehouse, and that was where I would be stationed for the period of time I was in Undercover. Right. Yeah. And then you came home a day or so later in an old bombed up car, a new identity, and then you just sat at home until they called you for a job. Okay, so it wasn't part time; it was full time. Full time Undercover, yes. Working out of the covert premises and new identification and all that. That would have been exciting times. Yeah, it was. And I quite enjoyed the process of how all these identities came about and all the backstop that goes with it. It's a lot more work than what people think. Yeah. And then obviously later on I became involved in that as a controller, but that's down the track. Yeah. Yeah. So tell me about your first, without giving away methodology, but you would have found yourself in some interesting situations as an undercover? Yeah, look, a majority of the cases were for drugs. Yep. And it's not just small-time druggies, of course. We get inserted through sources, and human sources must vouch for you, because you won't go any further if you don't have anyone to vouch for you in those, outlaw motorcycle gangs or big corporate drugs gangs. You need somebody to say, look, I've known them for a lot of years, and this is how I've known them. You can trust them. Basically, that's how it works. And you get inserted. And then we try to ditch that source a little bit further down the track, because most sources are unreliable. They'll be either drugs themselves or, whatever. They're in it for some motivation. Yeah, they're in it for some motivation that doesn't really reflect all their gear, all their friends going down. So then you work your way up into the group, and everything you do is you're recorded in one way or another. Yep. And once you do a buy, you've got to meet up with your controller, hand the drugs over, and then continue on. But it's also very difficult to have that I guess try to portray to the gang that you're buying that to sell it to somebody else because you're in a gang. They're trying to make money.
Yeah.
You've got to give money. You can't just be the buyer all the time. So it's a big game. It really is a big game.
It's a complicated game, and there's so many moving parts, and it takes a lot of planning. So I can understand from the intel background in the military and working in places like Somalia that it would all these moving parts in your head, and you'd have to think on your feet too.
Yeah, and look, I think I was very lucky back then because the technology wasn't around. When I say that, and I don't do it at all, but Facebook, Instagram, all those sort of things.
It's hard to build a legend or a profile, isn't it?
And it doesn't take long for the crook to just jump on. I'll go and have a look. Yeah. And they do face recognition now. Take a picture and they'll put it on through your Google app, and it'll say, "Oh, Dennis, here he is here." But how? His name's Peter. What's going on?
He was a cop before he was a bikie.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's not hard. So I was pretty lucky, really, that I was around that period where there was very limited social media.
Yeah. What was the persona, your undercover persona? What sort of roles did you play?
The first one I played was a glazier. So I was running a glazier business. Yeah. And that was how I could get my people that I could sell the drugs to, just go into the houses and whatnot and pull up on the side of the road. So they'd give you a little van with glazier written on the side and all that sort of stuff. And a phone number on the side would go to another old busted detective sergeant or detective senior connie somewhere that would answer the phone, and he'd go, this phone number's ringing. Bill's Glaziers. Next one he'd answer it. He'd go, Tom's Pub. So I've seen like undercover guys and girls, but even when you're running a couple of jobs and you've got a couple of phones going on, you've got to be switched on the whole time, isn't it? Absolutely.
It's high pressure.
Yeah. Look, when I ended up doing controlling, I would stick little sticker notes on each phone. Yeah. Because you don't want to answer the wrong phone to do a different name. Yeah.
It makes it hard. Was it conducive to having a life outside, or did you have to fully commit to that lifestyle?
No, fully committed. You have to. And you very limited time at home, especially with a young family. You don't get home. Yeah. And you have to do a lot of when you do come home. Yeah. You really have to do a lot of surveillance, combative surveillance, making sure you probably go about 20, 30, 40 Ks out of your way just to get home. Yeah. Make sure no one's following you and all that sort of stuff. So a lot of the times you've got police surveillance following you as well as crooks surveilling
because
following you.
You haven't been declared to police that they've got someone in the camp. Yeah. Any tricky situations you found yourself in?
Oh, look, I think there's always tricky situations. One funny one that I thought I just couldn't do was going to a nightclub, and it was way back when our tape recordings that we were wearing weren't as covert as they are today.
It was like strapping a brick around your chest.
Yeah. And you had to watch your watch all the time. Yeah. Every 30 minutes, the little C90 or C60, I think they were, tapes would swap and go overside. So you hear, and I think, oh, this is not good in a quiet area, especially at, say, at midnight when you're trying to do a deal in a park. Yeah. I think they'll know you've got a tape on. So that was hard to get around. But then they said, we want you to go. They would give, some agencies, I think this was for the Federal Police, there was a new drug on the Gold Coast, and I think it was ice at that time. Yeah. And they said, we want you to see if we can get us a sample of ice, and we'll see the purity, and we'll try and find out, if it's coming from the same source. Yeah. And I said, well, wearing tapes won't work in a nightclub because you just won't hear me and you won't hear the people. Video. I said, well, how are we going to get a video? So, and I am not joking. They gave me a great tall peak hat that you wear if you're running. Inside there was a little tape recorder about as big as an old C90 that you wear around your hip when you go running. Yeah. So I said, no, that's not going to work, champ. Forget it. Not doing it.
Oh. So it has improved. I remember I had an informant I'm sending into bikies, and we had the best equipment available. And we're not talking methodology because everyone knows it's completely trained. But it was summer, and I swear to God, it was the size of half a brick. Yeah, and we're taping it round his chest going, no, you'll be right, mate. And he's looking at me going, are you fucking kidding? Yeah. You want me to walk in with this? Yeah. And he looked deformed by the time we put it on. So, it was a different world, wasn't it?
And it doesn't matter how good you are. You cannot walk into a situation like that, feel threatened for your life, because they do. They'll kill you if they if they catch you.
Yeah.
Knowing you've got that on, and knowing somebody could see if they closely looked at you.
Yeah.
And you can't move because the tape takes the hair off your chest, and I'm thinking, oh no, this is just not on.
And how about when you work? I'm not sure how deep you went under with different jobs, but I'm sure you made associations and friendships on the surface with people that were probably going to bring down. How'd you feel with that?
Well, look, I had a really unusual time on the last job, and it was I ended up in a high rise on the Gold Coast. They put a contract on me after they found out I was undercover because we did a buy bus scenario type thing in the end.
Yeah.
And he was sitting there and he had a gun on his lap, and he said, "Oh, where's the $200,000?" They wouldn't give me $200,000. They said, "Here's $20,000, fluff it up to make it look to 200." I'm thinking, "Oh God, here we go again."
Work.
So, yeah, well, it sort of did and sort of didn't. And when I showed the bum bag, and I still wear one today, opened the bum bag up. He goes, "Oh, that's good." He said, "The drugs are in the safe." He said, "You're lucky you bought the money." He said, "I was going to kill you anyway and take the money." So, and of course, my only tracking device then was a mobile phone. Didn't work going up in the lift.
Yeah.
So my controller's down in the foyer of this building, and CERT are outside.
Yeah.
And they couldn't hear me.
Right.
So I talked my way out of the room and said, "Look, I'll go back down. I've got something in my car. I want to come back up and show you."
Yeah.
All right. So I was straight out and just told them, "You better get up there quick." Yeah.
Get back up there.
Yeah. So.
But that's a lot of pressure. You obviously had the capability of handling that pressure. Like you put some people in that situation, they'd be shaking and couldn't go through with it. Is it something in your makeup, or is it something you trained for? Or
well, I think it's partly a bit of both. I think makeup is a little bit.
Yeah.
You wouldn't apply for it if you didn't think you could do something.
Yeah.
But the training is very, very good.
Yeah.
The training is very good. The scenarios within the training is very good, very realistic. And I would think that even now, the better the resources are, the better the equipment you use, the more confidence you will get. Yeah. But you've got to be a little bit, I think, extrovert.
Yeah, you've got to be able to play that role too. I've had jobs in the past where it just wasn't the right fit. I had, and I'm not having a go at them. It was quite funny, but I needed someone playing a gay guy to spend some time with this person. Nothing, just out in public, spend some time. And so the UCs came in, and this is a long time ago, so I'm not telling tales out of school. They've come in and they're, he'd be a good bikie, he'd be good at this, that. Yeah, they came in the tough guy persona, and we wanted completely opposite. We wanted an uber gay guy to play this, play the role that we needed. And I still remember the look on their face when we're explaining what we needed. And we can't do that. And one of the blokes sitting there, big tough dude with his beard, I reckon if we just trim that beard up and do the hair up a little bit, we can get you in there. And they were mortified at the thought of it, playing it. They were right for the tough guys, but not playing the uber gay guy.
The problem I found with that though was that the tougher the betrayal you gave, the tougher the response they would give you, the crims, and they expected from you. Yeah. And that was another issue I found, particularly being a controller. I'm thinking, well, don't think we'll send you in. Oh, that would be my part. Maybe your part, mate, but I think I might ask you to do something that you cannot do.
Well, that's a good point, because I've had people in, and not UCs, but community sources, so member of the public in there, and tough guys, and they get in close to what we're looking at, and then they get called out and they're getting a call, oh, they want me to bash this bloke and blah, 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 and you get caught in situations like that. So I see where you're coming from a controller's point of view.
Knowing that they can't commit an illegality, as such like that, they can commit illegalities as sanctioned, but if it's not sanctioned, you'll go down as quick as what they will.
Oh, 100%.
Just don't put yourself in that situation where you're going to be called upon to do it.
But I think it must be one of the most emotionally taxing part of policing, and we've had a few people, Keith Banks, you might have know of. He did UC, I think, sort of a decade or so before you were doing it up in Queensland, and that was rough and ready stages. But we also had Joe Pistoni, the real Donnie Brasco, on the podcast, going undercover in the mafia. And what a story, what a person. But he didn't come across as a tough guy. He was obviously tough physically and emotionally, but he didn't project that image.
Yeah.
And he managed to stay in the mafia for that long. And Michael Francis, the mafia dude, I know him, and him and Joe have got a lot of respect for each other.
Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it, how it plays out?
Yeah. Look, the best bit of advice I ever got, I think, was from a controller at that time when I was undercover.
Yeah.
She said, don't be nice to any of the women in the group. She said, no one's ever nice to them. She said, if they're nice, they'll like you.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what you look like. They said, if you treat them well.
Oh, so if you're going into a group where all the tough bad guys don't treat their women really well, and you come in and, hi ma'am, or
don't treat them nice. He said, treat them as rough as they do. And he said, she said, and you'll get on well. But if you don't, she said, they will either pick you or they'll know there's something different about you because that's not how they get treated.
Okay, that's interesting.
Fair call. I remember that all the time.
Yeah. The little snippets like that come with the experience. When did you start working on Argos?
I went straight from what they do is they do a reintegration program for coverts, so that when you come out,
I'll bring you back into the real world.
Bring you back into the real world. And the first couple of days first couple of weeks is as a crime stopper, so you can wear a uniform because you'd never worn a uniform before.
Right.
They get you back to wearing a uniform.
That's interesting. Let's just wind it back a bit before we get on to Argos. So I hadn't even thought of that. So you've been in there for years. You're hanging out and playing a role, and then it's not like you're transferred here, and the next day you walk in and put on the uniform. It would be you'd have to get decompressed.
Well, they do, and there was a lady, a psychiatrist, and she brought me in for psychological interviewing. And she goes, I do hear, she said, you've got an anger issue, Dennis. So I kicked the table and said, who fucking told you that? And I should never have done that because I was only joking. She goes, oh, no, she said, people that joke really mean it. I said, I'm not. I said, I'm. So that's what's gone on my file, no doubt, somewhere. Yeah.
He tries to hide it with humour.
Yeah, it was quite funny anyway.
So it's coming back, and it's basically I say come back as a civilian, but you've gone from playing the role of a bad guy or whatever role you had to play into back into law enforcement officer. So it is a bit of a mind change, isn't it?
It is. You go from one day drinking beer at 6 a.m. and whatever, driving your car, going to get your drugs. You got drugs in your back wallet or in your top pocket. You've probably got around about $10,000 or $15,000, $20,000 in cash. You've got a gun stashed underneath your seat of your car. Your car's all tricked up and all this sort of stuff, And the next day you're sitting at Crime Stop and they're going, yes, how can I help you? Billy Blogs. And yet you can't go and have a coffee because they don't know where you are. It's just... the whole concept was just not quite right to me. But that was the reintegration process.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So you got back in there. Now, with Strike Force Argos, tell us what that's about.
Well, look, Task Force Argos really was the investigation of child abusers.
Yeah.
So that's the end of it. There are different areas within Task Force Argos. Some will sit in computers and pretend to be 10-year-old children.
Online.
Stuff. That's another area. I didn't get into that. They're a special breed of people themselves.
Yeah.
Another area which I think that should only be limited time.
Yeah. It has to play with your mind.
Of course it does.
Role.
Absolutely it does. Just leaves the police open for big payouts at a later time.
Yeah.
Silliness. Yeah. But you can't tell them. You can't tell them. So I was on the floor.
Yep.
And we would just get, same as you would normally do as a detective, you would just get files come through, and then you pick up the files and run with that, So that's where I sort of started with the pedophilia type. I did a couple of pedophile jobs while in undercover, but the investigation of them was quite tricky. They're a very unique individual, the pedophile.
Yeah, is there a type, like in the area that you work in, if you've done undercover work on it too, but then going to a strike force concentrating on them, is there a type? Can you, how would you describe them, or the fact that you can't describe them?
I don't think you can. I don't think there is a type. People say there is, and I actually illuminate that with Cowan there was a bit of a type, but that was really maybe not the type, it was the way they would behave. The behaviour was of similar nature, of course, because their end goal is of similar.
Yeah.
But, they could be women, they could be children offending against children, they could be adults offending against children, groups of adults offending against children. There was a pilot that was involved in the baby club, and he was in, and I never knew this existed. To this, it even amazes me today. He was in the baby club. So when he went home, he would change into a nappy and crap his pants and suck on bottles.
Jesus, and he's flying the plane for us.
And flying a plane for you, or cooking the steak at the local pub.
Yeah.
You know, but that's what they would get online, and they'd trade little children.
Right.
And they would have their own children that were in nappies to be traded.
Yeah.
It was just bizarre. You know, I went into one room and here he is, a man, not a big man, but a man nonetheless, 35, maybe 40 years of age, lying in a cot sucking on a bottle in a nappy. What the hell is going on here?
Okay, I don't know if I'm laughing, crying, or whatever I'm doing. We hear a lot on this podcast.
Shocked.
Yeah, I'd be shocked too.
Yeah.
And you said, what did you say to him?
Well, honestly, my first question was, I said, what do you do when I go to the toilet? And he looked at me like a fool. He just said, I shit myself. I said, well, you're in a nappy, I suppose. Why not?
And that's his thing.
Yeah, that's his thing. It's just, I'm still shocked to this day that and still goes on to this day.
Yeah, baby club.
Baby club, yeah.
Okay, well, it puts a different connotation on it when people say. Anyway, what was he charged with? He was.
He was grooming children.
Yeah, you're not charged with dressed inappropriately.
No, there's no charge for that.
Yeah,
no charge.
But grooming children.
Yeah, well, rape. He was raping the children.
How big is that as a team? How many members on it, and what's the reach of it?
Look, back then it was governed by a superintendent, who at that time was Ross Barnett, who went on to be the deputy commissioner.
Yep.
There's a couple of inspectors for each area, like for the computers area and the general floor.
Yep.
Then there would have been maybe 4 senior sergeants, probably 5 or 6 senior sergeants, and basically detective constables after that, and senior constables.
Okay, so it was a fair size.
It was a fair size, yeah. There would have been maybe 40 odd people.
And they did a lot of good work.
A great lot of work.
They had, like worldwide, acknowledged the work that Task Force Argos has done.
Absolutely.
So it's a heavy work. And I think that type of work, I'm not sure the numbers on Argos, but I know in New South Wales, child sex crime investigators, they always seem to be overworked. It didn't really, in policing, I'm not sure if it's changed now, but it didn't really give the importance to it that was needed, and the staff to it. And I always felt for people on those, because it's such a horrible crime.
Yeah, and look, what I found, you were overworked for a reason, is that you took it personally.
Yeah.
And I think you put more into it than what you did other times. That's what I found why I was overworked.
Yeah.
Apart from having a lot of files, once you got into something with a bit of meat about it, I would stay from 6 in the morning till 6 or 7 at night, and you're only getting paid from 8 to 4. Yeah. And they daren't give you any extra,
Yeah, I know. We went through that in New South Wales as well, but you're committed to it. It's a vocation, isn't it? It's a passion. And I would imagine with child sex cases too, you can't sort of just walk away from it because it's 5 o'clock, knock off. The kid might be in danger. There might be a child that gets offended. There's so many reasons why you need to stay back and put the work in.
Yeah, you did right, yeah.
So finding your way in that field, did you ask to go into that field, or is it just how the cards fell?
Look, once you come out of undercover, they take part of your undercover as detective training.
Yep.
So they give you a bit of credit towards being a detective.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to say, well, look, I'm not going to go that way, I'll stay in uniform, you could have stayed in uniform.
Yeah, yeah.
So I thought, no, I'll continue on.
Yeah.
And so they said, well, look, we are behoved now to put you in a placement. Where would you like to go? I said, well, I'd like to go to Cairns. I said, so I went up and had a look at a house, got everything sorted out, and they said, well, you're not going to Cairns. So that all fell apart. I said, well, where am I going? They said, start next Monday.
You asked. I said, Cairns, yeah.
Right. So you can go to Argos.
Yeah.
I said, well, what the hell's Argos? And they told me. I said, no, okay, I'll start Monday. So that's where we went.
Yeah. Okay. Fell into it that way. Yeah. Now, it was because of your involvement in Argos that it was while you were working there that Daniel Morcombe's disappearance. So tell me how you became aware of that and how you became involved in going to Brett Cowan's place.
Look, obviously, Daniel went missing early December 2003. So then we were a group of people that were called upon to go up and continue the investigation because it was going to be a little bit protracted. So I think it was about 2 weeks later. that we were up there. So it would have been probably a week before, after he was missing, but a week before that we went up there, that they called us in and said, look, your team's going up, this team's going up and whatnot. So you get up there and you get into your accommodation, and then you rock up for your briefings, and they give you at that time they gave you a series of folders of convicted, released sex offenders in that area. Yeah. And our whole sole job was to go around and check out their bona fides. Yeah. You know, if they said I was at the shop at that time, you would spend half the day going to the shop getting CCTV and come back and say, yes, verified alibi at that time. Yeah. And then you can discard that person. Yep. And that's sort of how we come up. And whether it was fortunate or unfortunate, one of the people in the file was Brett Peter Cowan. Okay. Do you, when you get the file, has the background checks been done, or you're aware of it, or you get the file, here's a name, this bloke's a pedophile, sex offender. Do you then build a profile before you go out, prep before you go out to speak to him? I would like to. Yeah. Sometimes you don't get the chance. Yeah, yeah. But we did on a couple of occasions, and we did on Cowan. Yeah. Why we did on Cowan, I couldn't say there was any reason why we did it more than we would of others. Yeah. I do not know at that stage. Yeah. But only because I think that going through his criminal history, he had some history in Northern Territory. Yeah. He had some history in Queensland prior to Northern Territory. Right. And he was brought back from Northern Territory to Queensland to complete his sentence from the one in Darwin because he wanted to be close to family, I think it was. Right. Something along those lines.
The offence in Queensland, we had Darren Edwards on it, that you know, and I think you think highly of Darren, and so do I. I work with him. We had a couple of crossover investigations, but he locked Brett Cowan up for that crime. It was a horrendous crime. So you would have seen that type of history when you're looking at him before you've gone out to his place?
Yeah, we did. But there's no detail about the history. Yeah. You know, I mean, there's no storyline behind it. There's no, I guess...
just these are the charges, just a short title of the offence. Yeah.
You would like to know that it was, first of all, in a public toilet. You would like to know the injuries to the child. You would like to know what age he was at the time, what age the child was, the physical description of the child, that sort of stuff. That's what I would like to know.
All factors in.
Yeah.
I suppose, and it's very much the way that different stages of Tyrrell investigation is approached, that, perhaps a pedophile is involved. The 3-year-old child was a little bit different because there wasn't a lot of that type of crime to rely on. And I know that what we were looking at, that pedophiles normally aim for children a little bit older, if in an abduction type situation. But going there, you might be able to eliminate the inquiry straight off. Like you go out there, knock on the door, no, I was in prison during that time, or this. So there might be an alibi that's readily, and okay, well, you can move on to the next. Because in jobs like that, it's surprising when you cast a net on all the people who have been convicted of child sex offences. There's a lot of people caught up, isn't there?
Look, there is a hell of a lot of people.
Yeah. Look, Dennis, we might take a break here because I want to delve into what happened when you went to Brett Cowan's place. And I've got a sense of it, but I think people are going to find it fascinating, just what happens when police go knock on the door for what, for all intents and purposes, is a routine inquiry. So we might delve into that in part 2 when we come back, if that's all right. So,
all right.